Yo guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about Palworld. I have almost 700 hours in the game, and so I thought it might be worth going over some tips and tricks on how to make your Palworld experience even better. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Now, what you'll find is that as you're playing, your inventory is going to get cluttered up. This is something that happens all the time, and they've added a new functionality here. So if you go ahead and hit R when you're opening this inventory here, it will open this screen here. And so this is an exclusion list. Anything that you have on this exclusion list won't be automatically put away for you. So you can put your things like your spheres here if you want, your money, etc. to make sure it doesn't get stashed away. To add or remove something from your exclusion list, you just click on the item. So we just right click here and it will add our exotic sphere to the exclusion list. To remove it from the list, we just go ahead and right click it as well. But if you go ahead and click OK after this, it's going to go ahead and just store these in chests nearby. And the way that this works is any chest that already exists with these items in it, just going to shove it in there. So I'm going to hit yes, and then boom, all that stuff is put away. And you can do this immediately upon starting the game. One of the best things you can do early game is once you start heading out and you find the first tower here, you can actually look around this area here for what's called a Vixy. If you can't find one in this general vicinity here, kind of just looking around, then I would go over in that direction there towards the church, and hopefully you can find one along the way. Now, when you look at Vixy, what you'll actually see is it sometimes digs up items from the ground when assigned to a ranch. Even at level 1 here, she's still going to be generating a ton of early game materials for you. Specifically, she'll be generating arrows, gold, pal spheres, and those are items that are extremely valuable right off the bat. So definitely getting a Vixy, maybe even condensing it to like level 2 or something, would definitely be worth it and be worth the time overall. The amount of time that you'll save just from not having to craft your own pal spheres alone will be incredible. So our next tip is actually a two-part tip, and basically the idea is about movement. This is a movement tech that allows you to get around much easier in Palworld. And so part of it is going to be relying on Gale Claw here. Now Gale Claw, unfortunately, is kind of a must-have for me whenever I'm playing this game. He gives you so much access to movement with his passive. Now, it does actually get better as you condense it, I think, but it's still something you can take advantage of even at level 1 for him. But as you can see, like, we are able to move around much more quickly than if we were just running around and sprinting. And as I said, you can use this even at level 1, and I believe you can find Gale Claw usually around like level 17, level 18. And so this basically gives you access to much better movement early on that you don't even need a flying mount for. Now, we're going to combine that with the grappling hook. So the grappling hook you can use again at any level, but as you get higher levels with it, you'll have a longer grappling hook, which will increase your speed. So keep that in mind. So you can do this on level ground. You can do this on a slight slope like this. It's actually better if you can do it and just get more speed, however that ends up being for you. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to aim down here at this rock, and then in midair, I'm going to switch to my other weapon. And basically, that's going to disable the grappling hook and allow us to just travel across. And we're going to go all the way to that island over there pretty quickly. As you can see, just really nice and smooth. And then we can go ahead and just reset our glider too to make sure we don't lose additional altitude. And again, this is a very early technique that you can use very quickly in the game, probably before level 20. And for references where you can go ahead and find Gale Claw. Basically, I always get him just north of the Desolate Church over in this area, just in here. You'll find him just kind of flying around. And like I said, I believe you can find him at like level 17. If we look around on my base, what you'll actually notice is in a ton of spots, you'll see random chests like this. But the reason for that is when you put them next to a node like this, like let's say this character here is farming this stone, right? When a transport pal goes and grabs this, they'll immediately take it to the nearest chest. And that makes it so that way they only basically have to like turn, look at the chest, and drop it off. It just makes your transporting pals much more efficient. So another tip is to actually make gathering its own separate base. So this is in my new world that I've started. And this is going to be basically a bunch of miners and loggers. And that's pretty much it. Now, I do have some automated food stuff happening over here. But in general, this base is really just dedicated to just putting down like things like ore or the logging nodes and stuff like that, and just having these guys go through. There's two ways you can actually collect this. You can collect this with a guild chest, And I really want to emphasize how cool the guild chests are. You can open a guild chest in any of your bases and have access to the same materials. So even if pals are putting stuff into a guild chest, you can still access it at any time, even in your main base. If you don't have any chests around, by the way, your pals will just put them in the guild chest, or if it happens to be the closest one. But alternatively, if you aren't that far into the game yet and you haven't unlocked the guild chest, you can just use your standard storage. Any storage will do, just put it usually near the PAL box because then you don't have to worry about your weight limitations too much. If you wanted to, you could just come here, you could grab it all and then teleport back to your main base. Now, something I want to mention about my mining and logging outpost here is that originally it actually had a lot of natural ores, and I was using this the same exact way before. In this location here, I'll go ahead and zoom out so you guys can see where there's a lot of ore, quartz, and sulfur that you can get pretty early on, so just west of Yormantide right here. And I was using the pals to actually go ahead and mine that for me, and again put it in a chest that I was utilizing right by the teleporter. And as time has gone on, I've go ahead and just placed my own nodes on top of those other nodes so that way they're not spawning in as much, and I can get them to focus on the particular nodes that I want. So for example, I have like a level 2 logging right here that we have these guys working on. But traditionally, as I said, the ore was like this, where it was like more free-range ore that was just spawning in just like that sulfur. And you can totally take advantage of places like this all around the world. You don't actually even need to build these sites if you don't want to. It just makes it a little bit easier, and as I said, I basically was able to evolve my logging and mining outpost from just being the natural spawning ores to whatever I want. And in the future, I can even put like high level ores here and not really need to transition this base in any way, shape, or form. One kind of iteration of this is doing what I like to call like a breeding base. So as you can see, this is just kind of a base that's more or less dedicated to just making some basic food and then making some breeders. Now, this kind of allows you to kind of separate these and allow them to be loaded in an area that's not really taking up a bunch of space. But alternatively, what you can do is you can kind of do what I did here and kind of build an all-in-one base. And don't forget that you can build vertically. So like, for example, what I do on this floor is mostly like mining and like over here using these different furnaces to make the like ingots that I need. If we go up to the second level, what you'll find is I did like a ton of just food up here. So this is mostly just dedicated to growing all of our food and then cooking it and stuff like that. I also have the ranches on this level. And then finally at the top is where we have our breeders. And we do have 3 breeders here with all of our beds kind of around this room. And again, this is just one example of how you can do a base. You can do, as I said, where each base is more focused, but this is just kind of an example of an all-in-one base. And as you can see, like we're pretty high up, so you can build vertically pretty significantly. Now, I believe when I was testing it, this roughly was like the highest you could build. Any higher than this before 1.0, the pals would get a little confused and would be unable to traverse it. I'm curious and we'll be testing on if I can build this higher now. Hopefully you can, fingers crossed. Now, with the launch of 1.0, they did add a bunch of pals that have the ability to increase all work suitability for a specific trait by 1 for your pals. It doesn't work on themselves, but it'll work on other people in your base. And so what you'll see is that if you look at like Ragnarok's here, his transport level, it has an arrow above it, and that's because it's currently enhanced by a pal at my base. And there are some of these that you can take advantage of pretty early. For example, Amane is available, I think, roughly level 15 or so, and she's going to be increasing the water suitability of all the pals at your base by +1. Another really good one is Cinemoth here, and it increases the farming of your characters by +1. Keep in mind, the farming is going to be stuff like the Vixy that we talked about earlier, or if you need wool, or if you need high quality pal oil from the mud, stuff like that. Anything that you can get from your farm. Puffoat here actually gives electricity +1, and there are even some late game pals that do this too. Patelia being an example of this. She gives planting +1, and these aren't going to be all of them. I'm sure there's going to be some that I miss here, so keep that in mind as well, but we'll go over a few more. Wumpo actually increases transportation by +1. Rabunny here gives handiwork +1. Catris Ignis actually gives +1 kindling. Now this one I want to mention too specifically. is actually pretty rare to find. I've only been able to find her in actual dungeons, usually on the Sakurajima Island. Now, there's probably places where you can find her later into the game, but this is definitely not what I would say is an early game pal. Clovey here is available very, very early into the game, and she gives Gathering +1. Tetrois here is a new pal, and he gives Mining +1 to all pals in your base. Now, this is going to be a really, really important one that I think a lot of people are going to want because you're constantly going to be having miners in your base. He is new though, as I said, and as far as I know, he's only available in the like level 50 range in the big desert in the upper right hand corner of the map. And again, that's not going to be all of them. There's going to be more that I haven't talked about here, but these are just some of the ones that you can get. And as I said, some of them like Amone here, you can actually get them very, very early. Another thing that's really cool about the guild chest is if you go ahead and open it up, you'll see actually if you put some food in here, it actually no longer expires. So over here, you see we have the timer, for example, on this meat. But if I was to put this in here, boom, suddenly the timer is gone. So any food that you do put in here can basically just be stockpiled forever. And as you can see, I'm actually already doing this with like eggs and milk and flour and stuff. So when I go to make cakes, when I'm breeding later, it'll already be here ready. Condensing pals early is actually something I highly recommend doing. So if you don't know already, in the tech tree, there is the pal condenser. This is what it looks like, the pal essence condenser. You can get it very, very early at level 14 and basically allows you to combine pals. And the first couple of levels of combining pals is actually pretty cheap. For example, by selecting the lamb ball first, and then I go ahead and select an additional couple of lamb balls. There we go, we get 1 star. And what that's going to do is that's going to change some of its abilities. To get to level 2, you need 8 more of these. So you only need about 13 in total of the same pal in order for you to get it to level 2. But the reason for doing this early is actually what you can see right here. I did it for Amone early because I knew I wanted that +1 watering across all of my base. And by doing so, I was able to upgrade her to level 2 watering and level 3 handiwork. Whereas most of the time, she normally only has level 1 watering and level 2 handiwork. And keep in mind, that's only for catching 12 of these. So while it might not seem like a lot, especially early game, it can be very helpful. Now, in the same vein, once you start doing the expeditions, you'll find that condensed pals give you a lot more score. And you can see that, for example, right here. This Shroomer, for example, is a Shroomer knocked that I caught. He was lucky, and he was already condensed level 3, gives my second highest amount, even more so than a level 60 Frost Stallion. Like a lot more, right? My level 60 Frost Stallion, who's higher level and a legendary, only gives 3,000, and the Shroomer gives 36,000. But you can see it with Amane right here too, and that this one, although it is lower level, only gives 400 firepower, and this one gives 11,000. This is just some examples on why it is important to condense even early on. And that goes even more so for pals that have an ability, like let's say Gale Claw, that we find very useful. As you do condense them, their ability gets stronger. I'm not saying you should level them all up to 4-star. I mean, you can if you want to, but again, 12 of them isn't that many in most cases. Now, if you get to the point where you're like level 30 or so and you're starting to wonder if you maybe should have gotten a Ring of Mercy by now, you can actually get something even better. So right here on the map, you'll notice that it's kind of like just north of this smaller desert where Anubis is, and also northwest of the small snow biome. Over here on the kind of edge area, you'll have this tower, and it will actually give you access to the Pal Tamer's glasses. Now, this is really important because it not only allows you to have the Mercy hit effect, but it also gives you the ability to see the PAL stats. So if we go down here, actually you can even see my Ragnarok right here is an 88, 27, and 89. That means 88 HP, 27 attack, and 89 defense, I believe. But if we go over, you can also see that for any PAL that you do kind of look at out in the open world. So you can do this to kind of find good PALs. Like for example, this is a pretty good Rayhound. So I'm actually going to go ahead and catch him. These stats do end up mattering for endgame. In general, I think it's going to be pretty useful for finding some of the best stats. I mean, more damage is always just better, right? Now, something to be on the lookout for while you're playing through your experience is keep an eye out for some electric pals. And in this case, I think these are the 3 electric pals that I farm the most over here by Lunaris. So if you kind of zoom out on the map, this is roughly where we are. That's Lunaris's dungeon right there. But over here on the side will be these Relaxosaurus Luxes. Now, you need a ton of resources from these pals. Specifically, Relaxosaurus Lux does give you access to electric organs that we need so much. And so I usually end up just coming back here and killing them over and over again. They're relatively easy once you get a decent enough team, or at least get comfortable enough to kill them with your weapons. And you can actually just fly away and have them respawn and then get them again. Now, this is probably not the best way to get electric organs. This just happens to be one of my easier ways to get them. Maybe you can come up with a better solution for farming them through just money and buying them. But if you fly away and then come back in a moment, you'll be able to see that they actually do respawn. So this does mean that there is a relatively easy way to get these over and over again without having to do too much additional effort. But again, they are level 52 here, so you can't do this super early. When you do start getting to this level though, you need a lot of these organs. And so if you haven't saved up a bunch of money by then, you might be finding yourself out here farming these guys next to Linares like me. And for my final tip, I just want to bring up how to make things a little bit more efficient for you in your base. So if you do have a pal, like let's say Anubis, who you want to continue working. So there's kind of two things about that. Dark pals in particular don't sleep, so they can work throughout the night, so keep that in mind. Alternatively, you can take a pal like Anubis here, who isn't a dark type, and you can actually give him Insomnia. Using this surgery table. It is available for you in your tech tree, but the surgery menu looks like this. When you actually go to do it, you can just go ahead and give a trait. Now, there are other good ones here too, where you can give like Ferocious or Nimble, Serious for work speed, Work Slave for work speed, but Insomnia is kind of the one that we're after. So Insomnia will actually just make it so that way he doesn't actually need to sleep at night and he'll continue working at all times. So for 10,000 gold, you can go ahead and just give any pal Insomnia in your base. It is kind of a, a cheaty little hack kind of thing, but I think it's pretty worth it. And I think while we're here, we might as well go ahead and give him Work Slave too, to give him an extra 30% work speed. And again, at 10,000 gold, it's a pretty good return. So now he's actually just a better worker than he was before. So now our brand new Anubis will no longer need to sleep at night and will continue working those long hours all throughout the day and night. All right, guys, well, I think that's it for this video. These are just some of my biggest tips and tricks for playing Palworld to kind of enhance your experience. Of course, there's going to be many, many more. Like the video down below, comment down below if there's any tips that you want to share with the community, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff like this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good one, guys. Peace.